Welcome, weary traveler. You've left behind the noise of the world and stepped into a realm untouched by time. Here, candlelight dances upon ancient stone walls, and the air carries the soft hum of forgotten lullabies beyond these gates. The night is gentle, and every story is a silver thread, weaving warmth around your heart. So, rest your mind. Let each word be a quiet step into the halls of dreams, until sleep, tender and deep, finds you. You are safe here, and slowly, the world drifts away. Chapter 1: The Whisper Beneath the Moonlight. The night began the way all peaceful things do, slowly, like a sigh. I remember the air first. It was cool and silvery, carrying the faint scent of rain long gone. Somewhere in the distance, a river moved quietly, its current barely audible beneath the soft hum of crickets. The moon hung low above me, a pale lantern in the vast dark, and its light poured gently over the fields, touching every blade of grass, every pebbled path, as though blessing them with stillness. I stood there for a while, barefoot upon the dew, feeling the coldness seep through my skin in a way that wasn't unpleasant, but grounding, real, calm. It was then I realized I didn't know where I was. And strangely, that didn't frighten me. It felt right to not know. The world around me seemed made not of stone and soil, but of memory. Trees swayed, their leaves whispering words too soft to catch. A distant light flickered, perhaps a lantern, perhaps a star, and my heart followed it, curious but unhurried. Every breath I took felt like it stretched time itself, as though each inhale drew me deeper into the dream, and each exhale released something heavy I hadn't known I carried. My worries, my noise, my name, all of it slipped away with the quiet rhythm of my breathing. I began to walk. The path wound through the meadow, bathed in silver light. Fireflies pulsed gently in the air, little floating embers that never burned. I followed them, watching their slow dance. Each time they glowed, I felt a warmth bloom inside me, faint and fleeting, like the memory of being loved. As I moved further, the sound of the river grew stronger. It was not a rushing sound, but a lullaby, the murmur of water kissing stones. When I reached its edge, I found an old wooden bridge waiting there, covered in moss. The wood was pale and smooth, worn by countless steps before mine. I placed my hand on the railing, and it felt warm, impossibly warm, as if the bridge remembered the touch of others and carried their gentle presence still across the river. Mist curled between the trees, glimmering faintly with moonlight. There was a feeling in the air, an invitation. I hesitated, only long enough to listen. The world around me breathed in rhythm with my heart. The grass swayed, the river shimmered, the air pulsed faintly with life. I could hear the faint echo of something, not quite music, not quite words, calling softly through the fog. And so I crossed. Each step creaked gently, but the sound was comforting, like the whisper of an old friend. Halfway across, I paused and looked down. The water reflected not the sky, but me, or perhaps a version of me I hadn't seen before. My reflection shimmered, softer, untroubled, as though all the things that had ever hurt me had been washed away. I smiled at that stranger, and she smiled back. When I reached the other side, the air changed. It was warmer here, like stepping into a forgotten summer. The mist parted in waves, revealing a grove of willows swaying in slow motion. Beneath them, tiny lanterns floated in midair, tethered by invisible strings of light. I walked among them, brushing my fingers through the glow. Each touch released a soft note, the faintest chime, like glass kissing wind. And then, in the quiet between breaths, I heard a voice. It was not loud or clear, more a present than a sound. It came from somewhere deep, within the hush of leaves and the hum of water. "You've come far," it said, the words melting into the night. "Rest a while?" I looked round, but there was no one there. Only the trees, the mist, and the steady rhythm of the earth breathing beneath me. Yet, somehow, I knew I wasn't alone. I sank down beneath one of the willows, the grass soft as silk beneath my palms. A lantern drifted near and hovered above me, casting a warm, golden light that flickered like candle fire. The glow touched my face, my hands, my heart, for the first time in what felt like forever. I let my eyes close. The world didn't disappear when I did, it only softened. I could still feel the gentle wind playing with my hair, hear the far-off ripple of the stream, and sense that same voice, still close, still kind, humming somewhere in the air around me. I breathed in, slow and deep. The scent of night-blooming flowers filled me. Jasmine, lilac, maybe even something unknown. And when I breathed out, something left me, something invisible, something I had carried for too long. The pain of old memories, the ache of words unsaid, the weight of sleepless nights, all of it faded like mist, dissolving in sunlight. In that moment, I realized the place I had found, or perhaps the place that had found me, was not bound by walls or time. It existed somewhere between waking and dreaming, a realm where sorrow had no shape, where silence healed instead of haunted. It was a place where nothing hurt anymore. I drifted deeper into that realization, my body sinking into the earth's embrace. The lantern above me flickered once, twice, and then steadied into a golden calm. The whispering leaves above murmured secrets to the stars. The water sang softly to the stones. The moon leaned lower, casting its gentle spell across the grove. And as I hovered on the edge of sleep, I thought I saw figures in the mist, silhouettes of others resting beneath the willows. Their faces were peaceful, their chests rising and falling in rhythm with the same dream I had stumbled into. Maybe they too had come from places that hurt. Maybe they too had walked long paths just to find this silence. A smile found its way to my lips. My heartbeat slowed. The lantern dimmed, and just before I slipped fully into sleep, I heard the voice again, closer this time, like a breath against my ear. "You're safe now." Chapter 2, The Bridge of Forgotten Names. When I awoke, the world had changed, not with noise or movement, but with the quiet shifting of a dream deepening. The air was softer now, heavier with warmth. I could hear the gentle rhythm of something unseen, perhaps water still, or perhaps the slow heartbeat of the land itself. The willow grove behind me shimmered in a haze of gold, as though it were already fading into memory. I knew I could not stay there forever, though every part of me wanted to. The path ahead, faint and glimmering, curved through the mist like a silver thread. Waiting, I rose slowly, brushing my hands against the grass. Tiny motes of light drifted up from my fingertips, dissolving into the air like glowing dust. I took that as a sign that the dream was alive, listening. As I began to walk again, my bare feet pressed into the damp earth, and I could feel warmth pulsing faintly beneath the surface. It felt alive, kind, almost like the land itself was breathing with me. The sound of the river returned, gentler than before, curling through the mist ahead. But this time, the voice of the water was different, not a lullaby, but a murmur of memory. And then, through the drifting silver fog, I saw it, another bridge. This one was larger than the first, vast and graceful, arched high above the river that glimmered with moonlight like flowing glass. Its surface was carved from pale stone, and each stone was etched with a name. Some I could read, some were too worn to decipher, but each one carried a weight that hummed softly in the air, the sound of something once remembered, now set free. I stood before the first stone and ran my fingers across the letters. The name shimmered faintly beneath my touch, and for a moment, a whisper filled the space around me, a sigh, a laugh, a single note of music that belonged to whoever that name once was. It wasn't sorrowful. It was gentle, a farewell echo that made the air tremble with peace. I stepped onto the bridge. Each footfall released a soft tone, as though the stones were singing in response to my presence. With every step, a new note joined the melody, low, then higher, weaving a quiet song that followed me across the expanse. Halfway through, I paused again. The river below moved slowly, thick with light. But when I looked closer, I realized it wasn't water that flowed. It was memory. Visions swam just beneath the surface, faces smiling, hands letting go, eyes closing in relief. Some looked like strangers, others almost familiar, as if I'd once crossed paths with them in another life, another dream. Their laughter rippled through the current, soft and golden, and the sight filled my heart with something between ache and peace. Then, a voice, the same one from before, came again. Every step you take, it whispered, something old fades gently behind you. I closed my eyes and breathed in. The air smelled faintly of rain and lavender. When I exhaled, I imagined the things that once hurt me, names, faces, memories, fears, slipping quietly into the river, where they would join the others and become something beautiful. A light wind brushed my hair, cool and fragrant. At the far end of the bridge stood a tall archway of white stone. It glowed faintly from within, as if moonlight lived inside it. The carvings along its surface formed patterns of flowing vines, stars, and sleeping faces, peaceful and eternal. I approached slowly, feeling the rhythm of my heartbeat syncing with the faint hum that emanated from the arch. When I stood beneath it, I heard the names again. But now they weren't whispers. They were a harmony, countless voices blending together, not in grief, but in rest. Each one sounded like a breath released. Each one sounded like forgiveness. I stepped through. The moment I did, the sound changed. The hum melted into silence, deep and wide as a night sky. The world beyond the arch was drenched in moonlight. Before me lay a vast field of white wildflowers, their petals glowing faintly like stars fallen to earth. The air shimmered, heavy with calm. Somewhere far away, a flute played, soft, slow, and patient. I began to walk through the field. The flowers swayed with my steps, brushing against my ankles. Each time I touched one, it lit up brighter for a heartbeat, then dimmed again, like a gentle pulse. For a moment, I wondered who had built that bridge, who had written all those names, who had sung those quiet songs of release. And then I realized it didn't matter. Perhaps no one built it. Perhaps it simply appeared wherever it was needed most. I thought of my own name, how heavy it had once felt, how tangled with old hurts and restless nights. And for the first time, I felt the faint desire to let even that go, to let it dissolve among the others in that river of memory where nothing was ever truly lost. Only softened at the heart of the field, I found a single tree. It was not tall, but ancient, with roots coiled deep into the glowing soil. Beneath it sat a stone bench, carved with the same delicate script as the bridge. I sat there for a while, hands folded in my lap, breathing slowly. The flute's song drifted on the air like the tide of sleep. A single petal fell from the tree and landed in my palm, smooth, cool, radiant with light. I held it close, and it warmed my skin, and then I heard the voice once more, softer now, almost within me. You are not what was taken from you. You are what remains light that still chooses to glow. The words sank through me like sunlight into water, and when I looked down, I saw that the petal in my hand had dissolved into brightness, seeping through my fingers until my whole palm glowed faintly from within. For a long while, I simply sat there, breathing, glowing, listening. The world around me pulsed in slow, steady rhythm, as though it too were alive with quiet gratitude. The moon hung lower now, its reflection glimmering faintly across the sea of flowers. The air was filled with the steady hush of peace, the kind that doesn't fade when morning comes. And as I leaned back against the tree, eyes heavy with calm, I felt the faintest tremor beneath the ground, not fear, but change. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the dream was shifting again, calling me toward the next place, deeper still, softer still. The flute's song began to fade, replaced by the hush of wings in the distance, the murmur of wind through unseen leaves. I closed my eyes and let the sound carry me, knowing that wherever it led, it would be somewhere kind, somewhere closer to the heart of that promise, the place where nothing hurts anymore. Chapter 3: The Garden of Sleeping Stars. When I opened my eyes again, the moon had shifted to its highest place, full and round, shining like a guardian lantern suspended in a sea of velvet blue. The air was different here, lighter somehow, fragrant with something sweet and ancient dot. I stood beneath the same quiet sky, yet the landscape had changed. Gone were the white wildflowers and the river of memory. Before me now stretched a garden vast as the horizon, not made of earth and soil, but of starlight. Each flower that bloomed here shimmered faintly, its petals glowing like fragments of night itself. The paths between them glowed pale gold, soft under my feet, and the air above rippled with floating motes of light, drifting like tiny worlds in the dark dot. It felt as though I had wandered into the breath of the cosmos. I walked slowly, every step sending a faint ripple through the luminous ground. The air hummed quietly, in that language of the stars that is not meant for words but for feeling. There was no sound of wind here, no rustling leaves, only the pulse of light. It was silence, but not emptiness. It was the silence that holds everything. Somewhere deep within me, I knew this place was old. Older than time, perhaps. A resting ground for things that once shone brightly and now slept in peace. I passed through arches, made of crystal vines that arched gracefully overhead. Each time I brushed my hand against one, the stars within the vine pulsed brighter, as if they recognized touch. The stillness around me felt sacred, almost reverent. I found myself breathing softer, slower, not wanting to disturb whatever was dreaming here. As I wandered further, I came upon a pool, perfectly still, perfectly round, its surface reflecting not the sky above, but 1,000 distant constellations below. It was as if the heavens had roots here, buried beneath the soil of dreams. I knelt beside it and peered in. My reflection looked back at me, soft and luminous. But there was something else beneath it. Faint shapes, moving slowly, like drifting stars asleep beneath the surface. And then I heard a soft voice, not the same one as before. This one was lighter, younger, perhaps belonging to the garden itself. "Do not wake them," it whispered tenderly. "They have earned their rest." The words made my heart ache, though not in sadness. There was peace in that thought, that even stars needed sleep. Even light could grow tired and dream. I sat by the pool for what felt like hours, watching the ripples shimmer faintly with each breath I took. The air carried faint traces of lullabies, melodies sung in a language I didn't understand but somehow remembered. Somewhere far off, I thought I saw movement, a faint figure walking among the glowing trees. I rose slowly, drawn not by fear but curiosity. The figure was cloaked in white and silver, their face hidden by a hood of light. They moved with the same still rhythm as the stars, their feet barely touching the ground. When they came close enough, I saw that their cloak was woven from strands of starlight, each thread pulsing faintly, like the heartbeat of a distant sun. They stopped before me, and though I couldn't see their eyes, I felt warmth radiate from them, not heat, but understanding. "Who are you?" I whispered. Their answer came not as a sound, but as a feeling that bloomed within me. "I am the keeper of quiet things, the one who gathers what has fallen, so it may shine again." Their voice, or rather, their presence, flowed through me like moonlight through glass. I felt seen, not with eyes, but with kindness. They lifted a hand, and in it appeared a small orb of light, no bigger than a tear, no brighter than a candle flame. "This," they said softly, "is what you left behind." I stared at the glowing orb. It pulsed faintly in rhythm with my heartbeat. I could sense something inside it, a fragment of memory, perhaps, or a feeling I had once lost. When they placed it gently in my hands, warmth spread up my arms, through my chest, into my breath. It wasn't pain. It wasn't joy. It was recognition. Inside that light, I saw a memory distant, fragile, of a time when I had loved without fear, laughed without weight, existed without the ache of needing to be more. It was me, before the noise, before the hurt. I wanted to cry, but the tears never came. Instead, I simply held that fragment close, letting it hum quietly against my palms. The figure spoke again, their voice like rippling water. Every soul that wanders here carries a light they once forgot. When they remember it, it finds its place among the sleeping stars. They gestured toward the vast garden, and I realized that each glowing bloom around us was not a flower at all, but a memory, a moment, a piece of someone's light that had finally found peace. The idea filled me with quiet awe. For a long moment, we stood in silence together, me and the keeper, breathing in rhythm with the glowing world around us. Then, gently, they reached for my hand. Their touch was weightless, yet steady. "Would you like to let it rest?" they asked. I hesitated. The light in my hand trembled slightly, as if it too were asking. I looked around the garden, endless and luminous, and felt no fear, no sense of loss, only gratitude. "Yes," I whispered. "I think it's time." The keeper smiled faintly, though their face was still hidden in the glow. Together, we walked toward the pool. I knelt once more, and slowly lowered my hand until the light touched the surface. The water rippled outward, sending waves of silver across the pool. The orb floated for a moment, glowing brightly, then sank gently, peacefully, until it joined the others beneath the surface. The stars below shimmered in response, brighter now, as if welcoming one of their own home. The keeper placed their hand over my heart, and for a brief, timeless moment, I felt something lift, a weight I hadn't even known I still carried. When I opened my eyes again, the keeper was gone. The garden was silent once more, but it was no longer the same silence. It was complete. I stood for a while, breathing slowly, watching the pool settle into stillness again. The air shimmered faintly, like breath in the cold. And then I heard it, faint but clear, the echo of that voice. Now, from within me, "Light is never lost." The words lingered in my chest long after the sound had faded. And so I walked on, deeper into the dream, where the path of stars curved toward a horizon I could not see, only sense, like the promise of dawn still waiting behind the dark with each step. The garden's glow dimmed behind me, and the night grew softer, warmer, more intimate. And though I did not know where I was going, I knew this much: I was not searching anymore. I was remembering. Chapter 4. The House That Remembers the Rain. The stars began to fade as I walked. Not suddenly, but slowly, like candles being blown out one by one, their smoke curling into the mist. The garden behind me grew faint, dissolving into the horizon until all that remained was a pale path of moonlight winding through the quiet dark. The air changed again. It grew cooler, thicker, carrying the scent of wet wood and moss. Somewhere far off, thunder murmured softly, not angry, just distant and weary. I followed the sound. The first drops of rain came as a whisper, so light I barely felt them. They shimmered in the air like silver dust, landing softly on my hair, my hands, the earth around me. Each one seemed to hum for a heartbeat before sinking into the ground. And then, through the shifting curtain of rain, I saw it. A house. It stood alone in the mist, half covered by ivy, its windows glowing faintly with golden light. The roof sagged gently beneath years of storms. Yet somehow it looked strong, the way things do when they've endured. I felt drawn to it immediately, the way one might be drawn to an old memory, something forgotten but familiar. As I approached, the door creaked open on its own, releasing a warm breath of air scented with firewood, tea, and rain-soaked soil. The sound of the rain outside deepened, wrapping the house in a soft cocoon of rhythm. I stepped inside. The floorboards sighed beneath my feet, but not in protest, in welcome. The walls glowed amber with the light of a small fire burning in a stone hearth. Across the room, a kettle steamed quietly, sending curls of vapor into the dim air. Everything felt alive in the gentlest way. The furniture was simple, wooden, worn, full of story. A wool blanket lay draped across a chair near the fire, and beside it, a small table with an open book whose pages fluttered slightly with the draft. I moved toward it slowly, letting my fingertips trace the edges of the room as I went. Every surface was cool and smooth, humming faintly beneath my touch, as though the house itself remembered being touched, remembered kindness. When I reached the table, I looked down at the book. Its pages were filled not with words, but with lines of rain, fine inked streaks that looked like falling water frozen in time. I turned a page, and it shimmered faintly under the FIRELIGHT dot as I watched. The lines began to move. Tiny droplets gathered upon the page and began to fall, not onto the wood, but into the air, vanishing before they touched the ground. I realized then the book was breathing the rain. I smiled softly, the way one smiles at a secret they don't need to understand. The rain outside deepened, pattering softly against the roof. I sat down in the chair and wrapped the blanket around my shoulders. The wool smelled faintly of cedar and old sunlight. For a long time, I simply listened. The rhythm of the rain was hypnotic, steady, and ancient, like the pulse of the earth. It filled every corner of the room, every space within me that had once been hollow. And then, over the crackle of the fire, I heard a voice, low and calm, coming from somewhere near the hearth. "You came back," it said gently. I turned, and there, sitting across from me in the dim light, was a woman, or perhaps a reflection of one. Her face seemed made of mist and moonlight, her eyes soft as dusk. I didn't know her name, but my heart recognized her instantly. "I've been here before," I whispered. She nodded. "Many have. But you, yes. You've been here more than once." Her voice carried that same quiet music that belonged to this dream. Slow, soothing, unhurried. "What is this place?" I asked. She smiled faintly, brushing invisible dust from her lap. "It is the house that remembers the rain," she said. "Every tear, every drop of sorrow that ever fell, came here to rest. The rain does not vanish, it becomes part of the song." I looked toward the window. The glass was fogged, the outside world a blur of gray and gold. "And the house?" I asked softly. "It listens," she said simply. "And when someone weary comes, it lets them hear what healing sounds like." The fire crackled quietly. Her words sank into me the way rain sinks into thirsty soil. I felt something stir in my chest, not pain, but its echo, distant and soft. She rose and poured a cup of tea from the kettle, the steam swirling between us like fog. She handed it to me, her hand briefly brushing mine. Her skin felt cool, like stone after a storm. "Drink." She said that tea was warm and sweet, with a faint taste of honey and something floral I couldn't name. With each sip, I felt warmth spread through me, not the heat of fire, but the calm of being known. "I've tried to forget," I said quietly, though I wasn't sure why. The words slipped out like rain through an open window. The woman smiled, her gaze soft. "Forgetting is only half of healing," she said. "The other half is remembering, but gently." Her words lingered in the air like incense. Outside, the rain grew softer. The roof above me began to sing, tiny drips falling into hidden corners, forming melodies that overlapped and echoed. The woman stood near the window now, her silhouette framed by light. "You can leave when you wish," she said, "but the rain will keep part of you here, not the pain, but the sound it made when it left." I wanted to thank her, but my throat felt heavy with quiet. Instead, I simply nodded. As I stood to go, she reached out and touched my shoulder lightly. "When you wake," she whispered, "listen for rain. You will know this house by its sound." And then she was gone. The fire dimmed. The rain slowed to a drizzle. The whole house seemed to sigh, long and low, as if falling into sleep. I placed the empty teacup on the table and looked once more at the open book. The page had changed. The falling lines of ink had shaped themselves into words, faint and glowing. "You cannot stop the rain, but you can let it fall softly this time." I closed the book. The room began to fade, melting into mist and moonlight. As I stepped outside, the storm had already passed. The air was clear, the earth glistening. Every leaf and stone shimmered with drops of silver that reflected the stars. And then, like a breath between worlds, the house was gone. Only the sound of distant thunder remained, gentle and steady, fading into the hush of night. I walked onward, the taste of honey and rain still lingering on my lips, the warmth of the fire still tucked beneath my ribs. And though I didn't look back, I knew the house would remain, quietly waiting for whoever next needed its memory of rain. Chapter 5. The lantern path and the gentle voice the rain had faded into mist. Each droplet that clung to the air shimmered faintly in the moonlight, as if unwilling to leave the world completely. The earth beneath my feet was damp and cool, its scent rich with the sweetness of moss and wet stone. For a moment, I simply stood still, listening. The silence after rain is its own kind of music, soft, full, and alive. The world seemed to breathe slower now, the rhythm of the night syncing with the slow and steady beating of my heart. Somewhere in that hush, a light flickered dot. At first it was only one, a faint golden glow trembling in the distance. But then another appeared, and another, until the path ahead of me was dotted with small lanterns, swaying gently as though in greeting. They were hung on slender wooden posts, their flames moving like tiny living hearts within glass cages. Each one cast a soft circle of light on the ground, enough to see the way, but not enough to erase the shadows. The effect was mesmerizing, a ribbon of warmth leading through the fog, twisting and disappearing into the silver-dark distance. I began to walk. The air was still, except for the faint creak of lantern hooks swaying on the posts. The light flickered over my skin, over the path. over the gentle rise of the land ahead. Each step felt like entering another layer of the dream. After a while, I realized the lanterns were not just glowing, they were singing, faintly. Delicately, a hum, like breath through glass. Each one carried a different tone, and together they formed a quiet harmony. As though the night itself were humming a lullaby. I stopped before one and leaned close. Inside, the flame was small but steady, swaying as if in time with the sound. When I exhaled softly, the flame flickered, and from within the lantern, a whisper rose, "Keep walking." The voice was not my own, yet it felt familiar, like hearing someone. "You've missed 4 years, but can't quite place." I touched the lantern's side gently, feeling the warmth of the glass against my fingertips. "Who are you?" I whispered. The flame wavered, pulsed, and then the voice returned. Softer still, "We are the words you never said aloud." I stood there for a long time, breathing in the weight of that answer. The air around the lantern shimmered faintly with something, not sorrow, not joy, but recognition. I looked down the path. The lanterns stretched endlessly, each one a silent guardian of its own light, its own secret. As I continued walking, the voices began to join the hum, faint phrases rising and falling in rhythm with my steps. Some said things like, "You are forgiven." Others whispered rest or let go. Every few lanterns, one would flicker brighter as I passed, as though sensing the heaviness I carried and glowing in answer. The path itself seemed to shift with me. At times, it was made of cobblestone, cool and old beneath my feet. Other times, it was soft moss or glistening sand, or mist itself. The lanterns never faltered. They hung like quiet souls, unwavering in the dark. Then, after a long stretch of silence, I came upon a larger lantern, taller than me, made of old brass. Its light was steady, brighter than the rest, and the hum it gave off was deeper, almost like a heartbeat dot. Drawn to it, I placed my palm flat against the metal. The warmth seeped into me instantly, spreading through my hand and up my arm. And then, the voice came not from the lantern this time, but from everywhere at once. "Do you know why you've come here?" I swallowed, the mist cool in my throat. "To rest," I said softly. A pause. Then, "And what will you do when you are ready?" I hesitated. I didn't know the answer. "I don't think I want to leave," I admitted. The voice was kind, so kind that I almost wept. "No one truly leaves. They carry this place within them. But to carry it well, you must remember what it taught you." I closed my eyes. The warmth of the lantern washed over me, and for a moment, I saw flashes. The willow grove, the bridge of names, the garden of sleeping stars, the house that remembered the rain, each one still alive within me, each one still whispering. What did it teach me? I asked, almost to myself. The voice answered in the hush that followed, that even light needs darkness to be seen, that even silence has its own song, that even you, fragile, fleeting, human, were never broken, only waiting to become whole. My breath trembled as I opened my eyes again. The flame inside the great lantern flared once, bright as the sun, and then softened back into its gentle golden glow. All along the path, the other lanterns answered. One by one, they pulsed with light, forming waves of warmth that rippled outward into the mist. The hum deepened, blending with the faint sigh of the wind. It felt like being inside a great heartbeat, the heartbeat of the world, slow and infinite. I stood there for what could have been moments or centuries, feeling that rhythm surround me. Each breath I took seemed to echo it. And then, from the far edge of the path, a smaller, clearer voice rose. So soft, I almost thought it came from within me. "You are not lost," it said. "You are lighting your way home." Something loosened in me then, something I hadn't known was still bound. I felt it dissolve with the mist, leaving behind only warmth and a strange, delicate peace. When I began walking again, the lanterns flickered brighter for a moment, as if nodding farewell. The fog began to thin, and I could see faint silhouettes ahead, trees swaying gently, and beyond them, a silver horizon glowing with promise. The path curved onward, endless and soft, and though the voices faded behind me, their warmth did not. It stayed quiet and steady, somewhere deep in my chest. Every step I took from then on was lighter, quieter, and full of breath. And in that silence, for the first time in what felt like forever, I smiled, not because I'd reached the end, but because the journey itself was becoming home. Chapter 6. The field where time sleeps the mist had thinned into a tender silver veil, rising in soft waves that clung to the air before dissolving into the pale light of dawn. But it wasn't truly dawn, not in this place. Here, the light never came from the sun. It seemed to rise from the ground itself, from the breath of the world, from the warmth that lived within everything. I followed the last of the lanterns until the earth opened into an endless field. The sight stole my breath. It was vast, stretching beyond sight in every direction. The ground was covered in tall, silken grass that glowed faintly with an inner light, the way embers glow long after the fire is gone. Each blade swayed in slow motion, as if caught in a dream where even the wind had forgotten its purpose. And among that sea of grass were flowers, pale as moonlight, soft as clouds. They shimmered when the wind brushed them, releasing small motes of golden dust that floated lazily upward before vanishing. There was no sound here. Not really, only the hush of things that no longer needed to speak. It felt like standing inside the pause between heartbeats. The moment I stepped forward, the air changed. It felt heavier and lighter all at once, as if I'd crossed into a place that existed outside of everything I'd ever known. Each step sank gently into the earth. The grass whispered against my legs, cool and dry, and yet I could feel the faint warmth pulsing beneath the soil. It was alive, not just with roots or worms or hidden life, but with memory. Somewhere, faintly, I heard the echo of laughter, a voice soft and distant, like a memory carried by wind. And then another, a sigh, a whisper, a murmur of words I couldn't make out. The field was full of them. I realized, slowly, that the sounds weren't coming from around me, but beneath me. The ground itself was whispering. I knelt down, pressing my palm to the soil. It was warm. Beneath my hand, something moved, not with fear or life, but like a deep exhale, a breath drawn by the earth. And then I heard it clearly, a voice old and young at once, like 1,000 voices layered together, spoke softly through the hum of the field. "You've come far, haven't you?" I didn't answer aloud. I wasn't sure I could. Do you remember? The voice continued, when time used to hurt. A pause. The air grew still. I swallowed. Yes. And do you remember what it felt like to hurry through pain, hoping it would end faster? My eyes stung. I nodded. I do, here, the voice murmured. Time sleeps. It will not chase you here. The words fell over me like a soft blanket. I closed my eyes and listened. The hum beneath the ground grew deeper. A slow rhythm, like 1,000 hearts beating as one. And then I understood. This was the resting place of moments. The field wasn't filled with flowers or grass. It was filled with time itself, sleeping peacefully, dreaming of the lives it had once held. Every blade of grass, every shimmer of dust, was a second, once painful, once hurried. Now forgiven, I sank down among them, lying on my back. The grass embraced me gently, cool against my skin. Above, the sky shimmered like a mirror of glass, faintly golden, faintly blue, as though it too were resting. I exhaled slowly, and the earth seemed to sigh with me. It was then that I began to see shapes within the field. They weren't people, not quite, but memories made of light. A child running through the grass. An old man sitting quietly, smiling at nothing. Two figures holding hands beneath an invisible sky. They moved without sound, their edges blurred and soft, as though even the air respected their need for gentleness. The longer I watched, the more they appeared, moments from lives I couldn't remember, but somehow felt part. Every emotion was softened here. Grief turned to gratitude, loneliness to rest, sorrow to song. I felt myself dissolve into the stillness. No pain, no fear, only breath. Time had loosened its grip, and all that was left was being. For a while, I didn't know if I was awake or dreaming. My thoughts became like the wind, wandering weightless. I began to hum without meaning to, matching the rhythm of the heartbeat beneath me. It was then that the voice returned, not from the ground this time, but from within. Do you see now? It asked. I didn't open my eyes. See what? That nothing ever truly leaves. It only changes shape. Pain becomes peace. Fear becomes quiet. Time becomes sleep. My breath trembled. And what do I become? The voice smiled through the air. I could feel it, warm as dawn. You become light enough to dream again. The words settled deep within me. Above, the sky began to ripple, its colors shifting from silver to soft rose. The field responded, the glow of the grass deepening to a tender gold. And slowly, one by one, the motes of dust that floated from the flowers began to gather, drifting toward me like fireflies. They circled lazily, humming in harmony with my heartbeat, until they formed a slow, spiraling dance above me. It felt like being blessed by the quiet. The warmth seeped into my bones, into every breath I took. My heartbeat slowed until it matched the pulse of the earth beneath me. For a long, timeless moment, I simply was no past, no future, only the soft rhythm of existence. Eventually, when I opened my eyes, the light had shifted again. The sky was a deep violet now, scattered with stars that seemed close enough to touch. The field glowed faintly beneath them, a sea of sleeping gold. Somewhere in the distance, a faint chime rang out, the sound of a bell. Far away, it didn't call me forward or backward. It simply reminded me I was still here, still dreaming, still breathing. I sat up slowly, brushing my fingers through the grass. The field hummed one last time, a sound like contentment. And then the voice whispered again, its tone tender, almost proud. You may rest here as long as you need. But when you rise again, you will carry the stillness of this place within you. The wind stirred, brushing over my face like a kind hand. I closed my eyes once more, letting that promise sink deep into my heart. When I opened them again, the horizon shimmered, and beyond it, I could see the faint outline of another landscape calling me onward. A faint river of silver light winding through the hills. It waited, patient, glowing, timeless, and I knew it was time to move again. So I stood, slowly, quietly, without disturbing the sleeping field. Each step I took made no sound, as though I had become part of the hush. The air around me whispered one last time, "Go gently, dreamer," and I did. Chapter 7. The river that remembers the field of sleeping time drifted away behind me, its golden stillness dissolving like mist in sunlight. Ahead, a new sound began to take shape, a low, melodic murmur that pulsed with rhythm, steady and alive. The air grew cooler, carrying the faint scent of rain and stone. I followed the sound, letting it guide me like a thread through the silver haze. After a while, the ground began to slope downward, and through the soft veil of fog, I saw it a river, wide and luminous, flowing through a valley of pale rocks and shadowed trees. But this was no ordinary river. Its surface glowed faintly, the color of moonlight mixed with memory. Every ripple shimmered with fragments of reflected dreams. Faces, gestures, half-formed thoughts, appearing and fading again as the water moved. It was beautiful beyond words, and something about it felt alive. I approached slowly, my feet sinking into the soft earth at the river's edge. The water whispered constantly, not in any language I could name, but in sounds that touched the edge of understanding. It was like listening to all the world's forgotten lullabies at once. When I knelt and dipped my fingers into the current, warmth spread through me, not hot, not cold, just perfect. The river's flow was gentle, yet it carried a weight, a gravity, like the memory of every tear, every sigh, every moment that had ever mattered. Then, from beneath the current, a voice rose, soft, fluid, echoing from everywhere and nowhere. "You have crossed the fields where time sleeps," it said, the words forming out of the sound of water. "Now you stand before the memory that holds it all." I lifted my eyes to the shimmering surface. The memory of what? The water rippled, and within its movement I saw the faint outlines of figures walking slow, translucent shadows made of light. "Everything," the voice murmured. "Every moment you thought you lost, every kindness, every sorrow, every touch of the world that shaped you." The river brightened for a moment, and in that brightness, I saw myself not as I was now, but as I had been. A child standing barefoot in the rain, a friend's laughter echoing through summer air, a lonely night spent watching the stars through a window. Each image appeared in the current, then faded gently downstream, joining the rest. I felt a tremor in my chest. Why show me this? Because you came here to forget pain, the river whispered. But forgetting and healing are not the same. The words moved through me like water through stone. Slow, shaping, the river swirled, and from its center rose a mist, forming the outline of a figure. It wasn't made of flesh or shadow. It was water, held together by light. Its eyes glowed softly, like stars beneath the surface. To heal, it continued. You must remember gently. The figure motioned for me to look again into the current. I obeyed that this time. I saw 1,000 tiny scenes flowing together. People smiling, crying, reaching for one another. I saw moments of beauty and heartbreak intertwined. Inseparable, each image dissolved into the next, like ripples folding into ripples. The figure spoke. Again, every hurt carries a seed of peace. Every tear holds the reflection of what made you human. You cannot take the light and reject the shadow that gave it meaning. I watched the river glow brighter, and for a heartbeat, I saw a reflection that wasn't just mine, it was us. All of us, every person who had ever dreamed, loved, lost, or hoped. The river wasn't just remembering me. It was remembering everything. A soft wind brushed past me, carrying the scent of rain and memory. The sound of the current deepened. It became a song, slow and mournful, but full of warmth. I realized, then, that this was the sound of the world remembering itself. And in that sound, something inside me loosened. The parts I had kept hidden, the ones that hurt. The ones I wished away began to surface, one by one. And the river took them without judgment. Each fear, each regret, each quiet ache slipped into the water and became light. The figure smiled, its form wavering like a candle flame in wind. You are learning to let go without erasing. The river brightened again, and for a long, still moment, I could see nothing but light. It moved through me, not blinding, but cleansing. When the brightness faded, the figure was gone. Only the river remained, flowing quietly. Endlessly, I sat there for what felt like hours, or no time at all, watching the current drift past. Every so often, I would see another fragment appear, a memory from long ago. Someone's laughter, a shadow of love, a moment of silence that had once felt unbearable and now simply was. I whispered into the water, "Will I remember all this when I wake?" The river replied, its tone like the hush of rain on leaves. "Not with your mind, but your heart will never forget." The wind shifted then, cool and fragrant. The trees along the riverbank rustled softly, scattering tiny petals that glowed as they fell into the stream. The current carried them away, blending them into the silver shimmer of its flow. And I understood. Nothing here was ever lost. Everything was part of the same current, always moving, always returning, always remembered. When I finally rose, my hands were damp with the river's warmth. For a moment, I thought I could still hear the voice within the water whisper, "Go softly, dreamer. You carry us all." I stepped back from the edge, and the mist began to gather again, wrapping around my shoulders like a cloak. The sound of the river faded into a lullaby behind me as I walked away. I could feel the rhythm of its current echoing within my chest, slow, steady, eternal. And though the night deepened, I no longer felt small within it. I felt part of something infinite, a story written in water and starlight, flowing gently toward whatever lay beyond the dream. Chapter 8: The Bridge of Forgotten Stars. The mist lifted like a veil as I walked onward. The river's murmur had grown distant, but its rhythm still lingered in me, that gentle pulse, steady and deep, like a heartbeat made of light. Ahead, the air shimmered. The land began to rise again, the path curving upward through silver grass that whispered softly against my legs. It was quiet now, so quiet that I could hear the sound of my own breath, slow and even, matching the calm rhythm of the dream. And then there it was, a bridge suspended over a vast expanse of air and mist, stretching from one unseen edge of the world to another. Its surface was made not of stone or wood, but of light, thousands of tiny stars woven together into a gentle, glowing path. Each step of the bridge pulsed faintly beneath me, as if acknowledging my presence. The stars shone warm under my feet, their glow rising and falling in time with my heartbeat. The air around me was filled with a faint, crystalline sound like the soft ringing of distant bells or the sigh of constellations breathing. For a long while, I simply stood at the edge and watched. The stars seemed to move within the bridge, flowing, shifting, swirling together like a river of light. I stepped forward. Instantly, warmth spread through me. The stars beneath my feet felt alive, humming softly, carrying whispers within their light. As I walked, I began to hear them, faint, gentle voices that spoke not in words, but in feelings. Each star seemed to carry a memory, a heartbeat, a trace of something once loved and long forgotten. And I realized what this place was. It was not a bridge to somewhere else. It was a bridge made of what had once been forgotten, every moment too small to remember, every kindness unnoticed, every breath taken in silence. All of them had come here, to shine quietly in the dark. I reached down, letting my fingers hover just above the glowing surface. The starlight warmed my skin, and in that touch, an image bloomed behind my eyes, fleeting, tender, a stranger's smile, the scent of rain on old stone, a night spent watching fireflies with someone I once knew. All those small, invisible moments that slip between the pages of life, they were all here, alive and shining. The bridge pulsed softly, as though pleased that I remembered. I took another step, and another. With each one, the stars beneath my feet grew brighter, their light reflecting faintly on my skin. The mist below the bridge glowed faintly, swirling with color, deep blues, soft golds, faint lavender hues that shimmered like breath. Then I heard a voice, not loud, not near, but everywhere at once. "These are the moments that held you together," it whispered. "Even when you thought you were falling apart." I paused. The words felt like hands cupping my heart, gentle and steady. The bridge stretched far ahead, the stars leading endlessly into the dark. I wondered how many lives had crossed here before me, how many had been healed by remembering the quiet miracles of being alive. The voice spoke again, softer this time. "The world remembers what you forget. It keeps the pieces safe until you are ready to return to them." A warmth bloomed in my chest. I began to notice that some of the stars were dimmer than others, their light soft and wavering. Without thinking, I knelt and placed my palm over one. The star flickered, then grew brighter, steady once more in that moment. I understood. The bridge did not only hold forgotten memories, it needed them to be remembered, even if only for a heartbeat, to keep shining. So I began to walk slowly, touching one star after another, whispering softly as I went, words of gratitude, fragments of memory, names I didn't even realize I still carried. And with every whisper, another star brightened. The bridge glowed stronger now, its light spilling out into the mist below, turning the darkness into something soft, alive and endless. Halfway across, I stopped. The air was filled with faint motes of golden light, rising and falling like slow snow. The voice returned, closer this time, like a whisper right beside my ear. You have always been part of the light, dreamer. You never truly lost it. You only forgot how to see. I closed my eyes, and for the briefest moment, I felt weightless, as though I too were made of the same starlight that built the bridge. When I opened my eyes again, I could see the end of the path, faint but glowing, leading toward a horizon painted in silver and rose. I walked the last stretch slowly, each step accompanied by the sound of the stars humming. The rhythm matched my breath, steady and calm, like the lull of the ocean far away. And then, as I reached the end, the voice spoke one last time. The forgotten light within you remembers its way home. The stars beneath my feet pulsed in one final wave, then dimmed softly as though bowing. I looked back once more. The bridge stretched endlessly into the mist, glowing faintly, and I knew that others would one day cross it too, guided by the same quiet light. Then, as I stepped off the bridge, the stars began to rise, floating upward into the sky, one by one, until the path was gone and the heavens above were filled with their glow. The night deepened, soft and endless. The stars shone brighter now, not as distant fires, but as memories made eternal, and beneath their glow, I walked onward, lighter, softer, and finally, at peace with everything I had once thought was lost. Chapter 9. The Garden of Quiet Souls. When the last of the starlight faded behind me, I found myself standing before a gate. It was small and simple, woven from vines that shimmered faintly, their leaves dusted with silver dew. The gate creaked open at my touch, soundless yet full of welcome, as if it had been waiting for me all along. Beyond it stretched a vast garden. The air was soft and cool, carrying the scent of earth after rain. Moonlight poured down in pale ribbons, touching every petal, every blade of grass, every gentle curve of the path that wound ahead. Nothing stirred harshly here. Even the air seemed to move in whispers at first. I thought the garden was empty, a quiet sea of flowers and low trees, glowing faintly in hues of blue, lilac, and ivory. But then I noticed the shapes, faint outlines drifting between the blossoms, moving with the rhythm of the breeze. They were souls, not ghosts, not echoes, but soft presences, like sighs made visible. Each one glowed with its own color: gold, pale green, soft rose, silver blue. They drifted slowly, pausing now and then to rest by the roots of trees or to brush their hands along the petals of flowers that never wilted. And though they made no sound, I could feel their peace. It rolled through the air like a tide, calm, deep, and endless. I stepped forward. The grass beneath my feet was warm, as though the earth itself remembered sunlight. The flowers swayed gently, parting as I passed. Some of the souls turned toward me, their light flickering softly in greeting. One drifted closer, a small, slender shape wrapped in pale gold. When it reached me, it bowed its head slightly, a gesture of kindness, not reverence. Its voice was barely a whisper, but I heard it as clearly as thought. "You have walked far, dreamer." I nodded. "I have." The soul tilted its head, and its glow brightened faintly. Few reach this garden while they still breathe. I hesitated, my voice soft. "Then, what is this place?" The soul lifted a hand and gestured toward the vastness of the garden. Its voice was like wind through tall grass. "This is where all peace returns. Every kindness, every love, every forgiveness ever offered, they rest here until the world is ready to hold them again." The words sank into me like gentle rain. I looked around, seeing more now, the way the flowers pulsed softly, their colors changing with every breath, the way the air shimmered faintly as though full of slow music. "Do the souls stay here forever?" I asked. The golden shape shook its head. "Not forever. Only until they are ready to dream again." I watched as one of the drifting lights rose gently from a bed of blossoms. It shimmered, growing brighter and lighter, until it was only a streak of color ascending toward the stars. When it vanished into the sky, the flowers beneath it bloomed wider, releasing a wave of fragrance so soft it felt like a memory of touch. The golden soul turned back to me. "You carry fragments of this peace within you already," it said, "but you came to remember what it feels like to live without pain." I swallowed softly. Yes, the soul drifted closer, its light brushing against my chest. "Then rest," it whispered. "Let the garden hold what you no longer need to carry." I closed my eyes. The air moved around me, warm and tender. I felt something loosening the tight knots I had gathered along the way. The weight of memory, the ache of what was lost, the fear of what could return. Each breath I took drew the heaviness out of me, and the garden absorbed it like mist melting into morning light. The flowers around me swayed. Their glow brightened until the whole garden seemed to breathe with me in and out, in and out, a perfect rhythm of peace. When I opened my eyes again, the golden soul was gone, but I didn't feel alone. Everywhere I looked, the garden shimmered with gentle life, a slow pulse of calm that wrapped around everything. I began to wander, my steps unhurried, my heart quiet. I passed beneath archways of ivy that dripped with silver dew, past ponds where the reflections moved more slowly than the surface they mirrored. Each corner of the garden seemed to hold its own silence, a different kind of rest. In one clearing, I found a circle of stone benches covered in moss. Upon them lay small orbs of light, souls dreaming within the garden's heart. I sat beside them, feeling their warmth without touching. Their glow was steady, rhythmic, the steady breath of beings finally at peace. The sky above the garden had no stars now, only a soft, pearlescent glow that pulsed like a heartbeat. Time here felt like water held in cupped hands, present, still, eternal. I rested my palms on my knees and listened. The sound of my own breathing blended with the faint hum of the air, the whisper of petals, the deep pulse of the earth, and within that sound, I heard something else, not words, not voices, but the feeling of being held by everything, the garden, the souls, the night itself. I felt tears slip down my face. Though they carried no sorrow, they were soft, easy, like dew sliding from a leaf. The garden accepted them. The earth beneath me glowed faintly where they fell, as if drinking in the offering. I whispered into the stillness, "I think I understand now." And the air replied, not as a voice, but as a feeling that wrapped itself around me like light. Peace was never far away. It was only waiting for you to slow down enough to hear it. The petals nearby quivered gently, shimmering with color. I lay down among them, the grass cool beneath me, the night sky heavy and soft above. The garden seemed to breathe with me, matching each slow inhale, each tender exhale. And for the first time in all my dreaming, I felt weightless, not because I was leaving the world, but because I had finally learned to rest within it. The souls drifted above me like quiet lanterns. Their glow dimmed slowly, their peace deepening. Sleep came like a tide, slow, warm, inevitable. And as my eyes fluttered closed, I heard the faintest whisper ripple through the garden. When you wake, carry this silence with you. Let it remind you that nothing is ever truly gone, only transformed. The last thing I saw before sleep took me completely was the garden's heart pulsing with light, and the stars returning above it, brighter, closer, eternal. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine yourself floating between the edge of night and dawn, neither awake nor asleep. The dream has softened, its colors fading into warmth. It is time to arrive gently, where the heart remembers peace. Chapter 10, where the dream ends. And the heart remembers the garden dissolved slowly around me. Its silver glow melted into mist, and the faint hum of the air thinned into silence. I stood at the edge of something vast, not darkness, not light, but the quiet in between, where everything rests before beginning again. For a long while, I didn't move. There was no need. The air here was full of stillness, soft as the breath before dawn. My thoughts drifted like feathers, slow and directionless, until even they began to dissolve. And then, through that hush, came the faint rhythm of footsteps. I turned, though turning meant nothing in this place, and saw a figure walking toward me. Their form shimmered, shifting between shadow and light, as if they were both made of me and not at all when they spoke. The voice was calm, familiar, the echo of every gentle thing I had ever heard. "You've wandered far, dreamer." I felt my chest loosen, a small, sleepy smile touching my lips. "It feels like forever." The figure tilted their head slightly. "It feels that way because you needed forever to slow down." Their words rippled softly through the air, settling around me like falling petals. "I thought I was lost," I murmured. "You were never lost," they replied, "only resting where your heart could mend." The mist stirred gently at our feet. Within it, I began to see faint glimpses, like reflections on the surface of still water. Moments, small, tender ones, a hand brushing my cheek, laughter by candlelight, rain falling softly on rooftops, the warmth of being forgiven. They appeared and disappeared, one after another, each one glowing faintly before fading back into the mist. The figure watched with me in silence. "These are the places that never left you," they whispered, even when you thought you were far away. I knelt, reaching toward one of the glowing ripples, a memory of a night sky, full of stars, the sound of someone breathing quietly beside me. My fingers passed through it like water. I remember, I said softly. I remember how it felt. The figure smiled, or perhaps the light itself smiled through them. Then you carried the dream with you. I looked up. Is the dream ending? They nodded gently. Dreams never truly end, only change their shape. The air around us began to shimmer faintly, as if a dawn was gathering beyond the mist. A pale, rosy light spread slowly, touching everything with warmth. It wasn't harsh or sudden, just a promise, a soft pulse of newness. The figure reached out their hand. Their touch was neither cold nor warm, but familiar, like the memory of being held as a child, like comfort that had no beginning or end. When you wake, they said, the world will still be there. Its edges may feel sharp, its sounds too loud, but beneath it all, this stillness remains. It lives inside you now. I closed my eyes. Their words sank deep, like roots finding soil. I don't want to forget this place, I whispered. You won't, they said. Every time you breathe slowly, every time you let the light touch you gently, you will return here. The light brightened, the mist around us glowed, and I felt a soft pull, not rushing, not tearing, just a tender invitation to rise. The figure began to fade, their voice becoming distant, like a lullaby drifting on a calm wind. Rest easy now. You are whole. You are loved. You are free. The words echoed softly, again and again, until they became the rhythm of my heartbeat. And then silence. A silence so full that it became everything. I felt my body again, the gentle weight of the blanket, the cool pillow beneath my cheek, the faint rhythm of breathing. The dream had folded itself neatly around me, like a shawl drawn close. Outside, the world was still dark, but a quiet kind of dawn stirred in my chest. I lay there, eyes still closed, and smiled, because I understood now, peace was never somewhere far away. It had always been here, beneath the noise, beneath the ache, waiting patiently for me to remember. The air moved softly against my skin. Somewhere, a bird began to sing, one note, then another, tentative and pure. I breathed in slowly, deeply. The scent of morning, cool, alive, gentle, filled my lungs. And as I exhaled, I whispered into the stillness, half awake, half asleep. I dreamed of a place where nothing hurts anymore. The room seemed to breathe with me. The warmth lingered. The dream, though fading, stayed within me, in my heartbeat, in my breath, in the spaces between. I drifted once more, not into a new dream, but into the quiet itself, and there I rested, truly rested.
Thank you.